Good evening. It is Thursday, July 14th, 2022 at 6 o'clock p.m. We are at the District Service Center in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the land of the Minnewacan Dakota people. Minnewacan means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Our first item on the agenda is our roll call. Dana, will you call the roll?
Eric Tesmer.
Here.
Louise Hines.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here.
Melinda Doles.
Here.
Simi Patnaik is absent. Pat Driscoll. Here. Sharon Van Leer.
Here. Next on our agenda is our Pledge to Allegiance. Could we please stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is 3.0, the approval of our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Eric and seconded by Louise. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is 4.0, comments to the board. We do not have any this evening, so we'll move on to 5.0, and that is our consent agenda items. 5.0.
All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the meeting. Board members have had the opportunity to review each of these items and may request for any of them to be moved to an action item for individual consideration. That has not happened tonight, so I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Melinda, seconded by Pat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is 6.0, information items. 6.1 is an update on the strategic planning that will be presented this evening by our Superintendent, Julie Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair Van Leer. I'm going to turn my mic on, though. Thank you, Chair Van Leer. As the board and community has heard, we are embarking on the review of our strategic plan that has been in place since 2016. Currently, our strategic plan includes two goals. Goal number one, ensuring a safe, inclusive environment and encouraging diverse perspectives through engagement, innovation, and creativity. And our goal two, engaging, motivating, and empowering each student through personalized instruction, creating shared ownership of learning. This evening, we have invited Christine Roboleski from TeamWorks International to provide an update to the board and the viewing community. Board members should recognize Christine, as she has also worked with Dennis Cheeseborough from TeamWorks International on board development and training. And as a reminder, and we have shared this with our system leaders as well, that our strategic planning process is a process that is a focus from the classroom to the boardroom. And so this provides an update until we meet back with the board in November into December. So Christine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Superintendent Nielsen. Good evening, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be back with you this evening. This will be a quick update, so you can move on to the rest of your agenda. I know this is a very busy time of year for you. As Superintendent Nielsen mentioned, this is a classroom to boardroom process. We have flipped our process from the way it used to be. So we have been working with your district this spring pretty heavily, intensely, on the beginning of the strategic planning process. It began in May, and that process included selection of a strategic planning team that has cross-representation, balanced cross-representation from 70 different people in your schools and programs across the district. Very carefully selected. It was an open process, and then the administrative team selected again to try and get that balance across the system for that strategic planning team. That team met twice in June to really get a foundational understanding for the context of strategic planning. So we had a session on June 9th that was all about the historic context for the district, going back to the longest serving staff person in that room, and that was going back to 1987 in this case. So we have a good story about the trends, influence, and changes in the district going back that far, leading up to now. And then on June 14th, we did what's called an environmental scan to analyze the current context of what's happening in the district. And we looked at everything from what's really well established to what's ebbing, what's emerging in your district, and what's on the edge. What are some of the ideas that are bubbling up? And we also explored a little further, what are some of the trends and influences that are creating the environment that this district is in right now? Everything from our local environment with what's happening in the schools, also what's happening in our community, but even more broadly, what's been happening at the state and national level that affects the trends in the school district. So we have that shared understanding of the context. And then when we get back together with the strategic planning team about a month from now, we're going to be looking at all of the data that we gathered in May and early June from your students, staff, and families about their desired daily experience. And that was another big lift in May. We met with several student, staff, and family groups, and I'm going to give you those numbers in a minute. But the point here is one of the foundational elements of your classroom to boardroom strategic plan is really understanding what do you want the experiences to be for your primary stakeholders, your students, staff, and families. And so what we did is we did an exploration with 10 groups of students, grades 4 through 12. So we spoke with about 135 students between early May and early June. And we went to 10 different schools to do that. Again, it was a cross-representation of students, so we have a lot of that data. We spoke with 3 different groups of staff, so that was about 150 staff members about what their desired daily experience is. And then 6 different family groups, and that came to about 65 to 70 parents, representing pre-K all the way up through secondary, lots of different representation, cross-representation. And we are taking all of that data that's going to be shared with the strategic planning team in August, and their job is to come up with a draft document on the desired daily experiences, a 1-page document. But we are going to share those summary descriptions with your whole community in fall, so that all staff, all parents, and I believe all secondary students are going to get a chance to provide their feedback on those draft descriptions in the fall, and then we'll finalize those descriptions. That desired daily experience document will then be foundational for the rest of the strategic plan, including how we're going to measure the plan. Are we measuring toward those desired daily experiences in your district? What are some of the initiatives and improvements we want to make to reach those desired daily experiences? And so that's what we've accomplished so far. Our next strategic planning date is in August. We will be giving you the updates in November. Our plan will take us from this past May, the start date, all the way through next spring. We'll be working closely with you all on the strategic roadmap, roughly the February-March timeframe, once we have established a portfolio of information from your strategic planning team, including a draft district operational plan. We will, at the end, have school and department improvement plans aligned to the district strategic plan. We're going to have a theory of action for you. That's part of your strategic plan portfolio. And then those vision cards, the measures and metrics about how do we measure progress toward meeting those desired daily experiences. So we'll be sharing much more information with you in the future, but you have a very, very strong start to your strategic planning process.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Christine? Board members?
Well, I would just add that, as Christine talked about that first group, that 1987 group, I may have been in the prehistoric dinosaur group, as we called it, but it was like a little family reunion as we all got together and talked about what was happening in the district. But if you can imagine, we looked back from 1987 all the way to present. And when you think about the many things in a district, and there were things listed from leadership to growth to trends in curriculum, just a whole variety of things. And I can see Pat smiling like, oh, I could just take 1 year and you can name 100 things. And then you look at that over time. Think about, we looked over time, the growth of the school district, We looked at how many schools were added in those different years, which then led to boundary changes, which then there were conversations around budget and referendums. And so there were just a whole bunch of different areas that if we could have a little timeline above to track, like when did the school district have referendums? When did we open elementary schools? Because over time, we forget some of that historic. And so it was a great experience. And as Christine reminded the group that this is going to be one of the real fun nights because you get to kind of reflect back and take a look at what you did and where you're at. And so we know that moving forward, we have a lot of refinement to do with some of the initial documents and the initial work that we've done. But I feel like at a really busy time as we're wrapping up a school year, we really tried to stay focused on making sure that we kind of set the dates and the pathway for our strategic plan because it hadn't been reviewed since 2016, that we want to stay focused on that. So thank you to Christine and TeamWorks International.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? I have one question, Christine. You said you had 6 groups of families. Were they diverse? What is the makeup of the families?
They were diverse. They were primarily made up of ambassador groups. So some of them were affinity-based, so that we could make sure that we had that representation, and some were open to all families where we asked them to RSVP. So we did want to seek that cross-representation and make sure we also had representation of students and staff. So your administrative team was really careful in trying to bring people to the table that really represented the district well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thanks, Christine.
Next is 6.2, the MDE review and comment presented this evening by Dan Pine.
Good evening, Chair Van Leer, board members, Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight I'll be here to have some comments about our review and comment. And I'll probably say the word comment a lot, so you need to excuse me for that. Before I start, though, I do want to acknowledge that the review and comment is a big report, and it gets bigger as the projects get bigger, obviously, by quantity mostly. And it was put together by a team of people, and it was probably the biggest one ever submitted to the Minnesota Department of Education. But I want to acknowledge the work of Assistant Facilities Director Dan Hines and Facilities Director Kyle Euchre. They went to every meeting in this planning process. They put in hours and hours of work. Dan never stopped. There was a lot of hard work by a lot of people, but I just want to acknowledge Dan and Kyle. So SoWashCo Schools submitted what is termed as a review and comment to the Minnesota Department of Education. And that regarded our construction projects that constitute the $462 million long-range facility plan. So Minnesota Statute 123B.71 requires the Commissioner of Education to return a positive or negative review and comment within 60 days of the district's submittal. The district received a positive review and comment from the Commissioner on July 6, 2022. The review and comment included the geographical area being served, the list of the existing school structures, a list of specific deficiencies in the facilities, description of the projects, specification of the source funding, and documentation obligating the district to comply with laws and standards. The Commissioner is required to include public comments to the review and comment. No public comments were submitted to the Commissioner. The review and comment letter from the Commissioner indicates that the proposed project appears to be in the long-term interest of the school district. So based on the department's analysis of the school district's required documentation and other pertinent information from the sources of Minnesota Department of Education, the Commissioner of Education provides a positive review and comment. That means we can proceed with the bond election. And if someone wants to review the commissioner's letter, it's in the board packet. If they want to review the review and comment, that's on the facilities page of our website. Tonight, this is information. We're required by law to discuss this at a public meeting, and this is fulfilling that requirement. But I will take any questions anyone has on the review and comment.
Seeing none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next is 6.3, Student Data and Cybersecurity Update, presented this evening by Julie Nielsen.
Thank you again, Chair Van Leer. In May of this year, legislation was passed that impacts schools and technology providers by requiring them to meet specific expectations regarding educational data and other matters. This includes provisions that must appear in contracts, limitations and notice requirements before accessing or monitoring a school-issued device, and notice to parents and students regarding any contract that we share our students' educational data with. This evening, the Department of Technology has been working hard to ensure compliance with this new legislation. And this evening, we have our Director of Technology, Bob Berkowitz, or as I call him, Bobby B, in the hallways, to tell us more about what this means for our students and families as we get ready to come back to school. So Bob, thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Good evening, Board Chair Van Leer, members of the school board, Superintendent Nielsen, and members of our community. The Department of Teaching and Learning and the Department of Technology would like to share some information with you today about a student data privacy law that was passed at the end of May and signed by the governor on May 22nd. This law does not have a number yet, so we're calling it HF 2353 is how it worked through the House. There's a couple of things that are important with this law. This House Bill 2353 is primarily to add to student data privacy that already exists, and the burden for most of this law is actually on the third-party providers themselves. However, this is to further protect student data as it relates to third-party systems. Third-party systems are those programs that we contract with for curriculum or for assessments. So an example of that would be Schoology. We use Schoology as our student information, or our learning management system. We provide information to a third-party provider for that system. So the law will have additional controls for Schoology, but also us as a district. There are things that we have to do to comply with this law. So one of the things that I want to talk about is what is required for us. We are required, upon request, to share with families the data elements that we share with a third party. So things like student name, student's email address, grade, school. Also, terms of service or user agreement. So all of the third-party providers that we work with, there is a user agreement, and so we need to make that available for any family who would like to see it. And then also the privacy policy that the third party has as a company. And so the technology team has been working with Teaching and Learning and other Minnesota districts to build a database that holds this information. This has truly been a state effort. We've been aware of this bill working its way through. There's a lot of information that we need to gather to make this information available for our families. And as we prepare for the new year, the technology department, Teaching and Learning, and our assessment team are building a website that has all of this information on it for our families to make it very easy for our families to access this information. As we begin the school year, in our family news at the beginning of the school year, we will send out information about this new law and about how to obtain information. It is proactive, so we're not required to do that as a district, but we've chosen to be proactive to make the information extremely easy to access. Most school districts in Minnesota will likely do the same thing as we're working together. Another tenet of the legislation that I'd like to highlight is really the controls that we use as we manage devices. So there are things that we cannot do with devices in this law when devices are off campus. And so our team is looking at all the tools we do have We have no concerns about the controls that we may have to turn off or not use, but that's something that we are looking at actively with things like classroom management software. The last component that I'd like to share is a provision in the law that allows the school to access a district-issued student device off campus in the event of a concern for imminent threat or safety of a student. And so this is an area that, per law, if we have to use a tool to access a device when off campus, it has to be part of a situation that is imminent danger to a student. And by law, we are required within 72 hours to notify the family and the student. And in that notification, we're required to identify the type of control we used, the information, and what the situation was. So we are working on the draft language in the case that we would need to do that. Any questions?
Yeah, how would you know to access if someone has information on their laptop? It's laptops that they have, right?
Yep.
So how would you know that there was some kind of?
Yeah, it would have to be an active investigation with information that there is likely a life-threatening situation. And so that may be from law enforcement, it may be from somewhere else, but it would not be a routine investigation. It wouldn't be like bullying. That's not a situation that would be necessarily life-threatening unless it had raised to that level and we were instructed to do so.
Can you talk about what are some of the controls that you can access?
Yeah, things that we would do in those situations. Yep. In those unlikely situations, if you think about the iPads that we have, if say a student didn't arrive home, we could do things like turn on location services to see where that device last was. Location services is a control that we are not allowed to use under this law outside of our school buildings, so outside of the school day. So that's a great example of something that we may attempt to do if law enforcement or someone else asks us because of a concern for immediate danger. Another one, it might be a situation of self-harm. We don't have the ability to capture any information at home on a Chromebook, but we could turn that on. That is a control that I'm aware of that we wouldn't use off campus. It's a classroom management tool, but in a situation of some investigation around self-harm, that's an example that we may want to use, but we would have to actively turn it on, and then within 72 hours, send the family in writing what we did, why we did it, and what controls were turned on.
Any other questions? Thanks, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Next is 7.0, which are action items. The first action item is 7.1, is the approval of our 10-year long-term facilities maintenance plan. Wow. And that will be given by Dan Pine, Director of Finance.
Good evening again. Chair Van Leer, members of the school board, Superintendent Nielsen. Every year, the Minnesota Department of Education requires the school board to submit a long-term facility maintenance plan. We submit a 10-year long-term facility maintenance plan. It's included in your packet, and you'll see that we put our expenditures and our revenues 10 years out. Now, those can change every year. We generally try to keep the amount pretty level to keep our tax rate level. Long-term facility maintenance revenue is generated through a combination of levy and aid. It's used to repair and replace existing structures and lands. It may not be used for new construction. Repairs include roofs, parking lots, heating and ventilation systems, classrooms, auditoriums, and other parts of the facilities. Revenue is generated with a combination of bonding, aid, and pay-as-you-go levy. Pay-as-you-go levy means it's a flat levy, so in the bonding, you might have remembered just a couple months ago we passed we issued some facility maintenance bonds. We generally run those facility maintenance bonds for a 2-year period. So we issued about $34 million. So $17 million per year of the funding for these projects is coming through that bond. Like I said, the Department of Education requires you to approve a plan. We've attached the plan in the packet for the next 10 years. I also attached what the spending will be on for the next 3 years. We have it for 10 years, but it was a lot, and I just thought, it would be interesting for someone to look and see the projects that are planned. We usually stay pretty close to this plan. If we come in under budget, then we move that money to the next year, or we under levy. In the attachments, it shows the site of where it's happening. They're basically in code, PHS is Park High School, WHS is Woodbury High School. And it does a good job of explaining what we're doing. And this stuff, a lot of stuff isn't very glamorous, replacing lighting, replacing PA system, replacing parking lots, replacing roofs, replacing carpet. So next year, 22-23, as we go into that, and they've already started working on some of those projects, we're spending about $22.6 million. And the plan for 23-24 is $24.5 million. And the plan for 24-25 is about $24.5 million. And I know that seems like a lot of money, and it is, but we do have 24 buildings. It costs $500,000 to $1 million to put a roof on, even on an elementary school. So you can see that it is spread out pretty much amongst the buildings. Obviously, we don't do every building every year, but we invest on the average about $1 million per building just to do parking lots, roofs, and heating and ventilating. So with that, I would ask for the board to approve the attached plan so that we can send it to the Department of Education by July 31st. And of course, after the motions, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Can I have a motion to approve the long-term facilities maintenance plan?
So move.
Moved by Pat and second by Katie. Is there any discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next is, we have 7.2, the approval of appointing election judges. That will be presented this evening by our Superintendent, Julie Nielsen.
Thank you. The individuals that are included in the document, Exhibit A, are qualified to serve as election judges. The election judges in the packet are appointed by the City of Cottage Grove, Newport, St. Paul Park, Afton, Denmark Township, and Gray Cloud Township for the elections in that city, as well as to serve as the school district election officers, and to act as such at the individual city precincts located within the school district. The election judges act as clerks of election. They count the ballots casted and submit the results to the school board for canvass in the manner provided for other school district elections. This evening, I am asking for approval on the list of election judges in your packet.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Can I have a motion to approve the election judge resolution?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Katie and seconded by Eric. Is there any discussion or comments? Okay. Because this is a resolution, we will do a roll call. Dana?
Louise Hines,
Aye.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Simi Petnaik is absent, Pat Driscoll, Eric Tessmer, Sharon Van Leer.
Yes. Motion passes. Next is 7.3, the approval of the tentative agreement with Bus Mechanics International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 70. And that will be presented by our Director of Operations and Finance, Dan Pine.
I'm back. Good evening again. Negotiations towards a new collective bargaining agreement between the South Washington County Schools and the bus mechanics, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 70. have resulted in a tentative agreement effective from July 1st of this year to June 30th of 2024. The members of that unit approved the tentative agreement on July 14th. And some of the highlights of the agreement are wages, percent increase of about 3.1% in year 2 and 3.06% in year, 3.16 in year 1 and 3.06 in year 2. It should be noted they have no steps in their agreement. So oftentimes we'll have some of our groups, a lot of our groups will have a step system in which you get an increase for being here another year plus whatever goes on the schedule. And not having any steps allow them to have a higher increase on their wages because steps usually cost 1.5% to 2% per contract per year. They did no increase in shift premiums on the health insurance side because of the non-steps, and they were able to negotiate about a 10% increase in health insurance in year 1 on their single plan, a single and family plan, and about a 5% increase on their second year. Our insurance rates have gone up they're going up about 10% next year. This will allow them to pay the same amount they are now. Although year 2, they'll probably go up 10% also, so then they'll be paying a little bit more for their health insurance. The district match for tax sheltered annuities is increased from $2,000 to $2,500 per year. And there's a one-time payment to each member of $800 in this agreement. Should be noted that there's only 6 members in this unit, so they're pretty easy to work with. They actually, during the last negotiation, they ran out, drove over to the garage and did their vote right away, so they didn't have to wait for anything else. Great group to deal with, obviously fantastic workers. Every year they hit 100% on their bus inspections, and it's because of them. And we're the only district in the state that ever pulls that off, so excited to have this agreement done with this group. And with that, I would recommend approval of this agreement.
Thank you, Dan. Can I get a motion to approve the agreement?
So moved.
Moved by Louise and second by Katie. Is there any discussion?
I just have one question. So we have 6 mechanics. How many buses do we have?
We have 110 to 115 regular buses and then another 30 special ed buses.
And they keep all of those at 100%.
Wow.
They're a pretty incredible team.
Julie buys some chicken.
Okay, after their last award-winning event, I may have bought them chicken. You're right.
Thanks, Dan. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next is 8.0 is our superintendent's report, given by Julie Nielsen.
I feel like I've been hogging a lot of the airtime tonight. I'd like to begin my report by sharing some wonderful work done by our South Washington County students who are part of our District 916 Career and Technical Program. Last night, Melinda and I had the opportunity to go and to check out a house that our students built. The address, I'll put that out there, 2487 19th Avenue, North St. Paul. It is on the market today. There were so many residents, legislators, individuals coming into the home to take a look at it. And we had 9 South Washington County students who are part of 916 Technical work on the house, and it was the framing and the exterior. They also worked with the cabinetry and the electrician and the interior portions of it, but that was done through Century and St. Paul College. But our students had a large hand in it, and so to walk around and to see this incredible home, it was shared with us that it was a very rundown home prior to that, and North St. Paul, the city purchases the house, and then they allow the students to do the construction. In a neighborhood, I would guesstimate, homes are probably about $300,000, and the list price, I haven't gone out and checked today, was going to be around $428,000. So it was a beautiful home, and just a nice opportunity to see our students so proud of their work as we all toured around. This week, I also participated in a joint effort with the City of Woodbury. And the City of Woodbury, much like we are as we talk about our strategic planning, they're just talking about what does successful community engagement look like. And so I was part of that this week and have 2 more sessions to attend, a number of different community leaders talking about the role of business, clergy, our school district as it relates to community engagement. Next, I attended a regional council meeting of mayors with Mayor Ann Burt of Woodbury. It was very well attended from metro school districts, and it included the mayors and the superintendents from the various school districts. The Dunwoody College of Technology spoke about students being engaged in hands-on programming. And it was really more a conversation around that our students have options in addition to four-year colleges. And one mayor shared that at their high school, much like we do at our high schools, we have College Day. And just to be really thoughtful about our planning and thinking about that some students aren't looking at that option. And so just to make sure that we're encouraging other options. We know that and have seen that students are taking gap years, they're doing technical colleges. They shared that Minnetonka, Wayzata, and I believe it was Edina, they attract the most students to the Dunwoody College of Technology for 2- and 3-year programs. So certainly a lot of interest in making sure that we keep options open for students, and at the end of the day, finding something that kids are passionate about and enjoy, and would enjoy doing for life. And then next, we continue to have conversations related to the August 9th bond election with our communications department and our school bond teams, working hard to make sure that accurate information is being shared. This week I took a call just to share with someone who wondered why the school district continued to allow houses to be built. And I think it's important to understand, and we've had a number of conversations, that we work with our cities, but as a school district, one of our roles is not to approve housing. What we do is once the city approves the housing, then we take a look at what type of housing and the number of students that would be generated that would come into the district. At almost the same time, a question was asked of why did we wait so long? And it's this constant battle of trying to remember what happened a number of years ago and where we are today. And so out on the website are frequently asked questions, and in there, that response, if individuals go back to 2015 when we were on the ballot with an operating question, question 1, question 2 was a bond question that built Oatman Middle School, and question 3 at that same time in 2015 was a bond question that looked at additions and then the renovations to the bathrooms in some of those elementary. And so that ask was on the ballot in 2015, and what we've seen with the increase in growth and students, that now those needs have multiplied. And so I would just suggest, as we think about the bond and moving forward, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and our website has a lot of great information on it. And then lastly, it's hard to believe, but school supplies are out. I thought the school supplies were for summer school, and then I saw our school list actually buy the school supplies. So that means that we are continuing to prep and get ready for fall and students return.
Okay, thank you. 9.0 are the future meeting dates. We have a school board workshop meeting on August 11th at the District Service Center at 6 p.m. And we have a school board business meeting on August 25th here at the District Service Center, also at 6 p.m. Next on our agenda is 10.0. 10.0 is a closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 2B, for preliminary consideration of allegations against an individual subject to the board's authority. Can I have a motion to move to close the session?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Katie, second by Louise. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Okay. We have returned from a closed session. Can I get a motion to return to an open meeting format?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Katie, second by Eric. All those in favor? Say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next, I will need a motion to amend the agenda to add an action item 7.4, action on resolution approving proposed employment action. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Katie, second by Eric. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Now we have action item 7.4, action on resolution approving proposed employment action. Can I get approval for the motion? Is that correct? Oh, excuse me. This will be presented by Abby Baker, Director of Human Resources, and Mick Walsberg, District Attorney. District's Attorney. Sound like District Attorney.
I'll simply read the resolution. Whereas the school board has given.
Mic, microphone.
Reading the resolution that's presented before the board, whereas the school board has given preliminary consideration to allegations against an employee, and whereas the school board has reviewed a draft of a letter informing the employee of proposed action, now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 833, South Washington County Schools, as follows. Number one, the school board hereby approves the letter setting forth the proposed action and the basis for the proposed action. Number two, the superintendent is authorized and directed to sign the letter on behalf of the school board. Number three, the superintendent or a designee is directed to deliver the approved letter and the specified enclosures to the employee and to place a copy of the letter in the employee's personnel file. Number four, pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13.43, Subdivision 2, the specific reasons for the proposed action, the nature of the proposed action, and the letter are private personnel data on the employee at this time. So now I'd ask for a first and a second and a vote on the resolution, please.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Katie, second by Melinda. Since this is a resolution, Dana, roll call.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Simi Petnag is absent, Pat Driscoll, Eric Tessmer,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you, Mick. And finally, we have 11.0, adjournment. This meeting is now adjourned.